The history books call them flops. The fans call them sacred.
Pick up your tent, you ain't going nowhere.
These are the albums that refuse to die. The ones mocked on release, but rediscovered by generations who heard the brilliance hiding inside.
My baby girl, my Sarah.
Every album on this list proves that charts never tell the whole story. And wait till the bonus, a misunderstood masterpiece that nearly broke its creator.
Ain't no one going to turn me around.
But ended up changing everything. Number 9. It's the album that made rock fans scratch their heads and country purists bristle. A California band trades Rickenbackers for pedal steel and helps codify a new sound. The Byrds, Sweetheart of the Rodeo, 1968.
Pick up your tent, you ain't going nowhere.
By 1968, the Byrds were restless again. Roger McGuinn wanted to explore American roots. New recruit Graham Parsons wanted to live it. Recorded in Nashville and Los Angeles with producer Gary Usher, Sweetheart folded in ace players Lloyd Green and J.D. Manis on pedal steel, John Hartford on fiddle banjo, Roy Jr. Husky on bass, and Clarence White on guitar, against vocals from McGuinn, Parsons, and Chris Hillman, with several of Parsons' original leads swapped out in post due to label disputes.
Right behind, tomorrow's the day.
Columbia released it in August 1968. Fans were confused. Critics were intrigued. The Grand Ole Opry crowd heckled when Parsons broke protocol to debut Hickory Wind. A few weeks later, he was gone, refusing the group's South Africa dates and walking out. Hillman soon followed, and the two built the Flying Burrito Brothers from the ashes. Time did the sorting. Today, Sweetheart stands as a country rock landmark, the dusty through line between late 60s Nashville experiments and the 70s West Coast sound.
Tomorrow's the day, a bride's gonna come. Oh, oh.
Number 8. A Chicago album that sank without a trace until a single song refused to stay buried. One DJ's gamble turned a forgotten record into a chart comeback. Styx, Styx 2, 1973.
Are you ready?
Chicago was home turf for these guys. Dennis DeYoung on keys, the Panozzo brothers locking the groove, John Karolewski and James J.Y. Young on guitars. In July 73, they dropped Styx 2 on Wooden Nickel Records, a small RCA distributed label with more hustle than muscle. The album went nowhere. Lady, produced by John Ryan, executive producer Bill Trout at Paragon Recording Studios, barely made a ripple. Then, in late 1974, WLSAM music director Jim Smith dusted off the single and threw it on the air. The phone lines exploded. Within weeks, it was a local phenomenon. Within months, a national one. Lady hit number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 in March 1975, dragging its long-forgotten album to number 20. Sometimes all it takes is one DJ, one spin, and a little rock and roll. Number 7. It's the album fans found in reverse, long after the hits, when collectors went digging for the spark that started it all. A quiet release that turned into a cult favorite. Thin Lizzy, Shades of a Blue Orphanage, 1972.
My baby girl, my Sarah.
In 1972, Thin Lizzy was still finding their footing. Phil Lynott, Eric Bell, and Brian Downey cut their second record at Delane Lea Studios in Wembley with producer Nick Tauber for Decca Records. It blended folk moods, blues edges, and the first flashes of Lynott's street poetry.
Buffalo gal, you gotta.
Tracks like Sarah and Buffalo Gal showed the promise, but the album failed to chart, and reviews were mixed. Ambitious, said some. Unfocused, said others. For years, it gathered dust until reissues in the 80s, 90s, and 2010 let fans hear where it all began. The moment Lennox's voice started to sound entirely his own.
You are all I need.
Number 6. It's the album that celebrated everything English, just as England stopped listening. A masterpiece with no audience, until years later, when the world finally tuned in. The Kinks. The Kinks are the Village Green Preservation Society, 1968. By late 68, while the Beatles chased enlightenment and the Stones flirted with darkness, Ray Davies looked backward. Tea shops, church bells, post-war ghosts. Cut at Pye Studios, London, and produced by Davies, Village Green arrived on Pye, UK in November 1968. Reprise issued it in the US in early 1969. The timing was brutal. Psychedelia was receding, hard rock rising, and the Kinks, unable to tour America since 1965, had little promotional oxygen.
We are the Rodeo Preservation Society.
Critics largely praised the songwriting, but the public shrugged. The album failed to chart in the UK or US. Ray later quipped they'd be lucky if it sold 100,000 worldwide. Decades on, those songs, Do You Remember Walter, Picture Book, and Village Green, became sacred text for Britpop and indie bands. A commercial flop turned into England's most beloved time capsule. Still with me? Good. The next few albums didn't just flop, they got buried. Let's dig them up. Number 5. A Strange Beauty Born in Los Angeles, all brass, strings, and shadows. It sounded like peace and paranoia in equal measure, and nearly slipped by unheard. Love Forever Changes, 1967. By 1967, Arthur Lee had seen enough of the LA scene to know the dream was cracking. While the Doors and the Byrds pushed outward, he turned inward. Fragile, wary, but brilliant. Recorded at Sunset Sound between June and September 1967, co-produced by Lee and Bruce Botnick, Forever Changes wove acoustic guitars, mariachi-style horns, and sweeping string arrangements into something no one else was making that year.
I need you so.
When the band's rehearsals fell apart, Lee brought in Wrecking Crew players Hal Blaine, Carol Kay, Don Randy, and Billy Strange to cut the first tracks, a move that jolted Love back into focus. Released on Elektra Records in November 1967, it peaked at number 154 in the US and number 24 in the UK. Its quiet intensity lost in the noise of louder trends. But time reversed its fate. What began as Lee's anxious farewell to the 60s became one of rock's most immortal albums.
I wanna love you, but
Number 4. It's the one album their label quietly wished they could forget. Long songs, no hits, ticket sales that tanked. But among diehards, it's the cult favorite that separates this trio's fans from their lifers. Rush, Caress of Steel, 1975.
Lakeside Park, so many memories.
By late 1975, Rush had just wrapped their climb from Fly By Night. Then they went off the deep end. 5 tracks, 2 sprawling epics, lyrics about necromancers and eternal fountains. Cut at Toronto Sound Studios with producer Terry Brown, Caress of Steel became everything Mercury didn't want. Dense, ambitious, defiantly uncommercial. It peaked at number 148 on the Billboard 200, and the supporting tour earned the name the Down the Tubes Tour. Over time, fans returned and heard what the label ignored. Raw nerve beneath the chaos. Songs like Bastille Day and Lakeside Park crackle with scrappy human energy missing from later precision. What once felt like overreach became a badge of honor. Caress of Steel is where Rush stopped chasing approval and started building their cult.
Laughing right, midway light.
Number 3. It opened with a riff that could melt steel and a singer who looked like he just stepped out of another planet. The label didn't know how to sell it, and neither did anyone else, at least not in 1970. David Bowie, The Man Who Sold the World, 1970-71.
With the man who sold the world.
Released in the U.S. on November 4th, 1970, Mercury, and in the U.K. on April 10th, 1971, The Man Who Sold the World is where everything shifts. Cut at Trident and Advision in spring 1970, it captures the raw chemistry of Mick Ronson's guitar, Tony Visconti's production and bass, and Woody Woodmansey's drums, the early nucleus of Bowie's soon-to-be legendary band. The sound is heavier and stranger, steeped in lyrics about madness, isolation, and identity.
I loved and shook his hand. I made my
On the UK edition, Bowie reclines on a chase in a satin Michael Fish man's dress, quietly revolutionary artwork that the US edition did not use. The record failed commercially at first. It didn't chart in 1970-71. Only after the 1972 RCA reissue did it reach number 105 in the US and number 24 in the UK. When listeners finally caught up, they heard the fuse being lit, the birth of Bowie's shape-shifting genius hiding in plain sight.
with the man who sold the world.
Number 2. It sounded like the British invasion reborn. Chiming guitars, fragile harmonies, songs about youth, beauty, and loss. It should have ruled FM radio. Instead, almost no one heard it. Big Star, number 1 record, 1972.
Ain't no one going to turn me around.
Recorded at Arden Studios in Memphis, number 1 record was everything the early 70s needed. Melodic, heartfelt, and meticulously recorded, produced by John Fry with the band, with Terry Manning dropping in on keys and harmonies. Alex Chilton had already tasted fame with the box tops, The Letter, but here, alongside Chris Bell, he chased something smaller and truer. Released on Arden Records, distributed by Stax, it ran into a wall. Stax distribution unraveled in 1972, so even with glowing press, Billboard said every cut could be a single. Rolling Stone raved. Many stores never got copies. The album sold fewer than 10,000 at first. For years, it lived in the shadows, passed hand to hand by critics and college DJs who swore it was a masterpiece. Then REM, The Replacements, and the DBs started name-checking it, and the cult became canon. 90s reissues finally put it back in print, and the brilliance was undeniable. It wasn't that the record failed, it just slipped through the cracks, like too many great ones do.
Hate to have to take you home.
Number 1. It sold next to nothing. The cover got banned. The critics barely noticed it. And yet, half the bands that mattered afterward wouldn't exist without it. The Velvet Underground and Nico. The Velvet Underground and Nico, 1967. Recorded in bursts in 1966, Scepter Studios, New York City, in April, TTG Hollywood in May, and Mayfair, New York City, in November, this wasn't built for the charts. It was a collision. Lou Reed's street-level songs met John Cale's Avant Drones, anchored by Sterling Morrison's guitars and Mo Tucker's Floor Tom Pulse. Andy Warhol bankrolled the project and is the credited producer, but Tom Wilson handled most of the actual production. Warhol/Paul Morrissey also pushed to feature Nico on several leads.
Where you gonna find there? You gotta run, 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 run. Take the dragon to.
Verve released it in March 1967 with the now iconic banana sleeve. Stores and radio did balk at the subject matter, and that summer a back cover photo of actor Eric Emerson triggered a legal complaint and a recall re-sticker, which hurt momentum. The album did chart briefly, peaking at number 171 on the Billboard 200 in late 1967. The aftershock never stopped. Bowie, REM, Sonic Youth, countless artists trace a line to it. As Brian Eno said in 1982, maybe 30,000 people bought it early on, but everyone who bought one started a band. 50 plus years on, that's not a flop, that's ground zero.
Run, 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 run. Chips to death in you.
Bonus. It sold millions and still got called a failure. The band was falling apart, the budget was exploding, and one marching band made history. Fleetwood Mac, Tusk, 1979. Okay, maybe this one wasn't a flop in numbers, but it felt like one. Rumors had turned Fleetwood Mac into global royalty, selling over 10 million in 2 years and eventually topping 21 times platinum in the US alone. When the follow-up only went 2 times platinum and peaked at number 4, that was a come-down the label couldn't spin. Warner Brothers had spent more than $1 million building Studio D at the Village Recorder in Los Angeles for it, expecting another blockbuster. Instead, Lindsey Buckingham tore up the formula, tracking at Studio D and at home, experimenting with tape loops, odd percussion, and even the USC Trojan Marching Band recorded at Dodger Stadium for the title track. Critics were baffled, fans split, but decades later, its reputation flipped completely. What once seemed indulgent now plays like invention, the sound of a band risking their crown to stay honest. If you've ever carried a record everyone else forgot, you know the feeling. So tell me, which one of these would have been your hill to die on?